Hey guys, it's me again, K-Town Fat Cat. Coming at you tonight, this late, because just got word, just came across the television that we lost a legend, a true living legend. And as you can see behind me, that legend was Muhammad Ali. I'm a sports fan. I'm a huge boxing fan. The news isn't shocking to me. His health's been declining for a long time. But at the same time, I feel like a little piece of me is gone. I mean, this is Muhammad Ali we're talking about here. You can go on Wikipedia or YouTube, read books. There's several books about him. But if you got a couple minutes, I'd like to tell you what I liked about him, what he meant to me. A middle-aged white guy from the South. I'm not a Muslim. You know, I don't agree with every decision the man ever made, politically, religiously, but I'm a sports fan. And how can anybody talk about sports from the last half of the 20th century and not mention Muhammad Ali? He's actually cornerstone. He's one of the first sports superheroes that I remember as a child. I saw him on TV boxing late in his career. I saw the toys, the dolls made in his likeness in the late 70s. Heard the song, you know, Muhammad Ali, the Black Superman. I mean, he literally tops them all as far as how bright his star shined. So if you got a couple minutes, just sit with me. I'd like to just tell you a couple things about him that I find awesome. He was born Cassius Marcellus Clay. He was from Louisville, Kentucky. He got into boxing at a really young age. At the time in Louisville, you know, race relations were probably at an all-time low. He goes off to represent the country in the Rome Olympics in 1960. He represented the United States as a light heavyweight. He won the gold medal. He came back home happy. He was treated like a hero over there at the Olympic Village. He comes back home to Louisville and he wasn't treated any different. He thought he could take that gold medal, leave it around his neck, and go eat at restaurants that he couldn't eat at before he left to go to Rome. Well, it didn't work out that way. He found out that he was looked down upon as just another black man, an African American. and told him he couldn't eat in the restaurant. And after all this, he looked at the medal and he said, what good is this thing? It won't even allow me to go into just a little cafe and eat a meal. I'm still treated bad. So he goes and he throws his medal off a bridge into the Ohio River. His Olympic gold medal. I mean, think about that. This young man's heart must have been broken. So he decides he's going to turn pro. He goes down to Florida, down I think to Miami, and meets up with Angelo Dundee. And Angie starts training him. And next thing you know, here he is, the light heavyweight Olympic champion, is now making noise in the heavyweight division. So he runs his mouth, tells everybody how pretty he is, how good he is, and how great he is, and how nobody stands a chance against him. And he's going to be the youngest heavyweight champion of all time, which was a record that was held by Floyd Patterson. He starts moving his way up the ranks. Next thing you know, he's fighting the likes of Henry Cooper, and he ends up fighting longtime light heavyweight champion and the holder of the record for the most knockouts in a career, Archie Moore, the Mongoose. Now Archie's old, granted, but the young Cassius Clay was too much for him, and he wanted to beat him. He didn't like the way he was running off at the mouth. Nobody did. So anyway, fast forward, he ends up hounding Sonny Liston, the baddest motherfucker on the planet. I'm talking, he was a destructive force. He destroyed Floyd Patterson, then destroyed him in the rematch. And here's Ali saying, I'm gonna beat you. I'm gonna knock you out. If you want to lose your money, then bet on Sonny. That's what he said. I remember that. So, what does he do? He goes into the fight. He's putting on a boxing clinic. Liston can't get any offense going at all. And I think it's like the 6th round, he comes back to the corner and he tells Angelo Dundee, hey, cut my gloves off. I'm done. And at this time, he's ahead on all cards. Angie's like, what the hell are you talking about? He said, there's something in my eyes. I'm blind. I can't see. Evidently, whatever grease or whatever they were rubbing all over Sonny Liston's body got on Clay's gloves, and some people said that it was put on Liston's gloves so that when Liston punched Ali, it would get in his eyes. Who knows? A lot of conspiracy theories around that. Anyway, Angie says, I'm not stopping this fight. You're whipping his ass. Get out there, get on your bike, and ride. Don't let this son of a bitch hit you. You'll be okay. So he does. He dances all the rest of the round. 7th round, bam, bam, bam. 8th round comes, beats the shit out of Liston, and Liston quits on the stool. He shocked the world. He didn't quite beat Patterson's record like he wanted to. He just turned 22 years old. I think Patterson was 21 when he won the title. But still, 22 years old, unblemished face. He hadn't taken any beatings, and he just beat the biggest, baddest monster that nobody could beat easily. Immediately after the fight, he announces that he has joined the Nation of Islam, and he's changed his name to Muhammad Ali. How big a deal is that? Think about that. In the 60s, for a black man to stand up and say, I know I'm heavyweight champ, but I'm changing my name. That was the name given to me given to my family by a slave master. I no longer want to be called by that. I want to be called by my new name, Muhammad Ali. This is a 22-year-old kid making this decision. As you know, fast forward, the Vietnam War happens. He refuses to join the service, and all hell breaks loose. He said, I don't have no quarrel with no Vietnamese. He had a good point. So he held to his guns. He said, even if it means I have to face machine gun fire on that day, I will not denounce my religion. I'm ready to die. That's what he said, and he meant it. So he was stripped of his title. Never lost it in the ring. He, in his absence, he went around, doing speaking engagements and things, trying to tell other young black people about the Nation of Islam and about how their ancestors were named by their slave masters and they ought to change their names. Well, in his absence, there was a tournament held, a Unification Tournament. I think it was the WBA and the New York Boxing Association or something like that. And the WBA champ was his old friend, Jimmy Ellis from Louisville. They grew up together. He was heavyweight champ of the world. The New York champ was a man named Joe Frazier, a man whose name is synonymous with Muhammad Ali, a man who left us a couple years ago, preceded Ali into heaven. And I'm sure they're arguing right now about who won those fights. But anyway, Frazier beats Ellis. He becomes the undisputed champ. Ali comes out of exile, gets his license back, takes a couple of tune-up fights. I think he beats Jerry Quarry. And then he goes on to fight Joe Frazier in the single biggest boxing match of all time. It was the fight of the century. You had two undefeated heavyweight champs because Ali never lost his belt. And he used to always taunt Joe Frazier about that. He said, I've got the belt at my house that John L. Sullivan, Jack Dempsey, Joe Louis held. I've got that belt. Nobody took it from me. I'm the real champion. Well, that pissed Frazier off. I mean, he had worked hard to get to be called heavyweight champ of the world, and damn it, if he wasn't going to let anybody tell him he wasn't champ. He was going to prove that he could beat Ali. Well, these two guys squared off in Madison Square Garden, And they fought the full 15 rounds, and Frazier knocked him down late in the fight with an unbelievable left hook. Oh, I see it perfectly. I've seen that punch at least 500 times. I've watched that. Ali was up at the count of 4. Best punch you can imagine. He was up at the count of 4. Now, in his book, I encourage you to read his book, The Greatest. He talks about how, when he was hit like that, he would almost be dreaming, on his feet, dreaming about being in a room with lizards playing saxophones and everything. And there was a clown suit hanging on the wall, and he took the clown suit off the wall and put it on and became the clown and danced around until his faculties came back and he came back to his senses. But that muscle memory he had allowed him to carry himself through moments of rounds where this other guy's trying to tear his head off. I'm telling you, this man was special, people. He lost that fight, and that devastated him for a while. He, was gold medalist, undefeated heavyweight champ, who just ran into the 1964 gold medalist, and undefeated heavyweight champ, and lost. And fought a few more fights. He ended up losing to another man named Ken Norton. Ken Norton was a phenomenal physical specimen. He looked like Evander Holyfield used to look, all chiseled and sculpted. But this was back in the 70s, and he was a sight to behold compared, to all the other heavyweights at the time. Anyway, he lost a decision to Norton, and in the meantime, there was another gold medalist from the 68 Olympics, heavyweight gold medalist from the United States, moving up the ranks, crushing everybody. Sound familiar? Big monster, nobody could beat. He ends up, his name was George Foreman. He ends up fighting Joe Frazier, undefeated knockout artist, killing everybody, fighting the undefeated, undisputed champion in Frazier. Foreman absolutely demolished Frazier, destroyed him, knocked him down like 6 times in 2 rounds, and took the title from him. And then in one of his first defenses, he fights Ken Norton, the other man who had beaten Ali. Knocks him out in 2 rounds also. Ali starts talking for a fight. I want to fight this guy. I know how to beat him. Everybody's like, man, I don't know. He might kill you. He's beat the 2 guys that you've lost to, and he's done it in 2 rounds each time. Ali said, I don't care. I know I can beat him. I did it before with Sonny Liston. I can do it again. Well, he gets what he was asking for. He gets a fight in 1974 in Zaire, Africa. And does the same thing he did with Sonny Liston. Shocked the world. He didn't outdance Foreman. I mean, he didn't dance around Foreman like he did Liston, okay? He wasn't sticking and moving like he did the first time. He was sticking and moving, but there was a lot of holding behind the head and talking in the ear of Foreman. Every chance he got, he'd grab him and talk, say, "You don't hit that hard. Is that all you got, George?" Things like that. You know, psyching George out. He was a master at psyching people out. He understood that the psychological warfare in the ring could hurt an opponent just as much as the punches did. Well, this made Foreman furious. So he would pin Ali on the ropes and just pound and pound on him. Now, people who fought Foreman have said, you know, he broke people's arms when they were covering up. And his punches to people's hips and body were just tremendous. And he had Ali on the ropes several times, just pounding him, haymaker after haymaker. And Ali just covering up. The whole time his corner saying, "Get off the ropes, get off the ropes." And he's like, "Shut up, I know what I'm doing." And he did. Foreman got tired. Ali slipped out of the corner off the ropes. Bam, bam, 1-2 right on the kisser. Foreman goes down. Referee counts him out. Ali's champ of the world for the second time. Both times beaten, in his words, big ugly monsters that no one else could beat. And he had it all planned out. He called it the rope-a-dope. Lay on the ropes and let the dope punch themselves out. So this is his second title reign. Yeah, he ends up fighting Joe Frazier for a third time in what might be the most physically punishing boxing match you can imagine. It was in Manila in the Philippines, and it was like 130 degrees in the ring with the lights and everything, and the humidity was horrible, and they called this fight the Thrilla in Manila, and it lived up to that. He kept his title. Frazier, his handler, Eddie Futch, ended up telling the ref to stop the fight. He didn't want his fighter to take any more punishment, and that, I think, was the 14th round. And neither one of the guys were the same after that. Ali ends up fighting another Olympic gold medalist in the 76 Olympics, Leon Spinks. This was like Spinks's 8th fight, I think. You know, the only thing, he was just riding on this popularity of the Olympics. He and his brother, you know, Michael Spinks, were both gold medalists, and there was a lot of hype. Sugar Ray Leonard was on that team, and there was a lot of hype around those guys. So he got thrown into the wolves really early. I'm talking about Leon. And Leon goes in there, big underdog, and beats Ali. Ali just didn't, I don't know, he didn't look like himself. He had just got finished fighting Ernie Shavers and took a pretty damn good beating by Shavers, you know, from Shavers. And people said it softened him up. And I think it did. He wasn't focused. I mean, how's somebody with 7 pro fights going to beat Muhammad Ali in a championship fight? Well, Spinks did it, and they immediately rematched, I think 6 months later, and Ali whipped him easy. I mean, whipped him easy. Got the title. Now he's the 3-time heavyweight champ of the world. And he retires. Well, after he retired, you got fighters fighting for the title. Similar to what I was saying back in the early days when he was stripped of the title for not going into the service. And you had Jimmy Ellis and Joe Frazier fighting to see who's going to be the champ. Well, this time you had Kenny Norton fighting Larry Holmes, who, yes, everybody knows used to be Ali's sparring partner. Well, they put on an unbelievable fight for the ages, very evenly matched, and Holmes gets the decision, becomes a champ. He's undefeated. He's whipping everybody's ass. He's got this incredible fast jab. I mean, I don't know if there's ever been a better jab, if you ask me, in the heavyweight division, at least. And so Ali says, damn it, I'm going to come back and I'm going to shock the world again and whip this guy's ass. He used to be my sparring partner, you know, and he convinced everybody. I remember as a kid the hype for this fight and seeing Ali training and running and, you know, swearing he was going to do it. And, you know, he convinced a lot of people he was going to beat Holmes. He actually had dyed his hair, and we all bought it, hook, line, and sinker. And he goes in there, and we saw it unfold. It wasn't the same guy. He said later, you know, I saw the punches coming, but I couldn't get out of the way. I saw the openings, but I couldn't get my punch there in time. So it was sad. Reminiscent of Eddie Futch stopping the fight for Joe Frazier in the Thrilla of Manila. I still hear it ringing in my ear. Angelo Dundee saying, I'm the chief second, and I say stop the fight. He cared about Ali. He'd been with him since the very beginning. And you see Ali slumped in the corner, sweaty. You just know that that's the end and that's his last fight. Wouldn't you know it? He tries to come back and fight again. He fights Trevor Berbick. He's the guy who Tyson made fall around the ring, you know, like a drunk. When Tyson became the youngest heavyweight champ, feat Ali was unable to do. But he in his last fight, he fought Trevor Berbick and lost that fight and retired for good. So he has 5 losses. His first was to Frazier, second to Norton, third to Spinks, fourth to Holmes, fifth to Trevor Berbick. If you look at his record, it's littered with literally every heavyweight who was ever anybody from the 60s and 70s, late 60s through the whole decade of the 70s. He fought them all. He fought them all and beat them all. You know, he lost to Frazier and ended up beating him. He lost to Norton and ended up beating him in a rematch. He lost to Spinks and ended up beating him in a rematch. So He literally beat every opponent he faced from the beginning of his career all the way through the 70s. And then he ended up losing to Holmes and to Trevor Berbick in the 80s when he was done. He should have never came back. He would have been one of the few people who had actually beaten every man he faced had he not come back in the 80s. But imagine that. This man was a superstar. You know he heard it calling. The bright lights, the praise, the money. He wasn't even 40 yet, people. And he had experienced all these things in his life. So he came back and lost those 2 fights. And his boxing career was over. Well, we all know what happened. You know, he becomes this cultural icon. Travel the world. I mean, his face is so recognizable. He is the biggest, brightest star to come out of sports in a lifetime. It's not often in our lives that we lose such a legendary figure. And I'm struggling to think of another one. Michael Jackson, Prince. I remember here where I live in North Carolina, Dale Earnhardt, when he died, it was huge. But do you think that, you know, people in Asia knew who Dale Earnhardt was? You could go to any continent, any country, in any continent on the face of this planet and show somebody a picture of Muhammad Ali and they would know who he was. We've really lost somebody special, and I hope you take the time to get to know him and get to know what he did and when he did it. See, that's the important part. We've had so many people come through boxing and do certain things. They did it faster than Ali, or, you know, quicker as far as winning the championship at a certain age. Other people have come along and won the championship 3 times. You know, things have happened that equaled or surpassed what Ali did. But when he did it is what's important. You have to remember that. In the middle of the civil rights era, when you couldn't be bold and brash and cocky and be a black man, but he did it. And still go out and perform, because if he lost at any of those times early on, I wouldn't be sitting here talking about him right now. I'm telling you, he had to win. It was his destiny. So anyway, I didn't mean to turn this into a history lesson. I was hoping that it would just be me somehow praising him, but that's the only way I really know how to do it, is to just talk about special things that stand out to me. And I'm just a boxing fan. I'm just your normal guy. And to me, that's what meant the most. Those feats that I try to describe. And there's other people who describe it better than I do. So, you know, go read some books, watch some videos. He was and will forever be simply the greatest. For now, this is the K-Town Fat Cat signing out. I hope you enjoyed this. If you do, click over and check out my other videos. I do have another Ali video where I talk about the Ali Marciano super fight, computer fight. And like my videos, subscribe to my channel, and I will be coming back with more stuff. Hope you like my delivery. I know I have a southern accent, but I think that says something. You know, like I said earlier, southern white man, middle-aged, doing a tribute video to a 74-year-old black man who just passed away. Take care.
I am the greatest. 15 times I've told the clown what round he's going down, and this jump ain't no different. He'll fall an ace to prove that I'm great. And if he keeps talking jive, I'm gonna cut it to 5.